In this video, I'm going to show you how to fix the Neon SRT4 fuel bottleneck. I've seen a couple forums, I've seen a couple videos, but I haven't found a really good step-by-step video on how to actually do this. We'll get right to it here, not waste any time, and I'll show you how to get this done. We've got the bottleneck here, and essentially what this is it pops onto your fuel pump, and then your flow area gets pushed down to this tiny little amount here. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert it from using that to using our own 5/16 fuel line to a couple of bulkheads that is going to feed our fuel instead of having it go through all this stuff in the factory regulator. Let's get right into it. So one of the first things we have to do here is I have the factory fuel return. I have that capped. I've got a hose clamp on there. Next, I have to put these bulkheads on the top of the canister here. So this is a 5/16 and 6AN bulkhead. So it comes with these two little washers for sealing. One goes on each side. Then it comes with this little nut here to fasten it. Now, as far as location goes, our feed, I want to come through around here because the feed is going to pop through somewhere around here. So I'll drill a hole somewhere around here for the feed. It would be nice to have it kind of like right here. So maybe I could Dremel that piece out there. But if I set it here, I could have my fuel line come through here. And I think that would work. If I set it around here, it would be pretty much a straight shot though. So I may think about dremeling that out quick. In fact, I think that's what I might end up doing. So I have the top part here dremeled flat. So if you look here, I just kind of slowly and carefully took away material. And what I'm hoping to do is have this nut somewhere in here like this. So what I'll do is I'll grab a drill bit that's a little bit smaller. I'll kind of mark where I want to drill there. I'll get that out of here. And then I'll start to drill through. Kind of go to the other side, clean it up a little bit. And now what I'll do is I'll take the drill bit that is the proper size, which it looks like this 1/2-inch drill bit should be good enough. And then I'm going to slowly drill this out because this one I want to be nice and clean. There we go. Now it fits. Make sure it's nice and clean in there. And then we'll grab the other half of this. We'll drop that down. Grab the nut here. Get it started here. Get it threaded down. So I've got a couple of adjustable wrenches here. So I'm going to try and kind of hold this on the back side, and then on this side I'll tighten it up, which is going to be a little bit tricky because it's a little bit awkward to get in there and kind of hold it together. But we're going to want this pretty tight, about as tight as I can get it with these. Just have to be careful not to tighten it too much and somehow crack the plastic. That should be good. Looks good there. So now we've got our feed to go through there. Now the next thing I can do is I'll pop this guy back on here. So let's get this lined up. So now what I'm going to do is I've got this submersible E85 safe fuel line. This is just some Evil Energy fuel line. Got it on Amazon, 5/16. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and drill a hole that lines up with this bulkhead here. So I'm going to kind of just eyeball it. And I'm actually going to want to start out with a smaller bit. I like to start out with a small bit and then go back up. It makes it a little easier to drill. So I'll kind of go here like this. And I think, like something like that should be okay. So now the hole is big enough to slide my fuel line through here. And if we see, it lines up pretty dang well with that barb there. So next, I am going to find a good spot to drill for the return. I'm almost wondering if I do end up putting it over here like this, because then I can have one fuel line kind of go up and over like that, the other one up over like that. I think that should work. Let me just kind of double check. Yeah, those will clear fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to grab a small drill bit, and then I'm going to hold this nut, you know, about where I want it down here, and then I'm going to kind of mark that there. And now that I have that marked, I'll go ahead and drill through. Okay, I have both holes drilled through, and I have both of the bulkheads in. So now that I'm done cutting and drilling this piece, I can clean it up really, really well. We're essentially done with this piece for now. Next, we're going to move on to the sump, getting the new pump in here, the new filter, so on and so forth, getting the fuel line through. But first, I kind of want to clean up everything, get all the shavings out of here, get my drill bits out of here, so that I'm ready to go for the next step. Okay, so I got everything nice and cleaned up here. So this is the final product here. So we've got our feed, and I've got that marked with a little F, and then we've got the return here, got that marked with a little R. Now these are two AN6 by 5/16 bulkheads here, and these are two AN6 PTFE 90s, and they perfectly clear the factory regulator here. So no matter where I need these lines, I'll be able to put them wherever I want them. I got everything all nice and cleaned up here, so now we're ready to move on to the pump. I've got the pump here. This is Walbro 255. I ordered this from Modern Performance. They make a note in the order thing that it comes in a TI Automotive box. That's normal. Apparently that's the parent company of Walbro. But this kit comes with really everything we need. It comes with this O-ring that goes on the bottom of the sump here. It's got the filters, the one that goes inside the sump. It's got the filter that goes outside the sump. It's got your little blue O-ring. So we'll kind of open this up and see if we can get this together. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to grab our black O-ring here. This O-ring is going to go on the bottom side here. And I think I'm actually going to use a little bit of WD-40 to lube this up. So I've got just a little bit of WD-40 here. I'm just going to spray a little bit around here, and then I'm going to slide this black O-ring on this piece here. And I want to make sure that it doesn't roll at all. Make sure I don't have any weird seating or anything like that. And we want it to be nice and flush with that bottom piece here. So now we can take our external filter here, and we want to line this up so that it lines up with these two tabs here. So this guy will just click into place. There we go. So we've got our external filter in place here. Now there's a little rubber grommet that goes on that piece there, which I have in my little box of goodies here from when I took everything apart. So that piece is just going to slide on the end of this. And it looks like I probably should have had this on before I put that external filter on. Live and learn. We have our fuel pump here, and we've got the evil little bottleneck here. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to pop this bottleneck off. We can even just kind of break those tabs off because we don't need this piece at all in the slightest. It's being stubborn. There we go. So got the bottleneck off. We'll pop that to the side. We've got this little O-ring on here. We've got to get that off of here. And then we've got this little white piece here that we also need to get off of here. kind of just spreading it apart like that seems to work the best. Now, we are going to be using our new fuel line for this. So what I'll do is I'll pop this fuel line over the edge like that, and then I'll find a little clamp that's gonna fit here. And we're gonna want to make sure that this clamp is nice and even. This clamp positioning and the tightening is pretty critical, because you don't want to have to be pulling your pump back out because your clamp came loose and the tubing came off. So make sure it's nice and tight, but not too tight where it starts to strip the actual clamp piece. So we've got that there. I'm gonna need another one of these, so I'll keep one of these out. Now next, we want to get the bottom half assembled here. So we've got this filter. This filter is going to go on so it lines up with this black nub. We've got this blue piece here. I'm going to spray a little WD-40 in between here. And then we get this little blue piece on here like this. Spray a little more WD-40 just to make sure we get a nice seal. Now this pump is going to sit down into here like this. So I'll sit down there like that. Now what we need to do is we need to feed this black hose through the new hole that we drilled, and we need to feed these two wires through the smaller hole here. Now on your original pump, there should be this little grommet here. So you want to reuse this. Pop this out of here. So we'll reuse that grommet with the new pump. Okay, so I have the pump tubing running through here, or the fuel tubing running through here. Got the electrical stuff running through here. So now what I'll do is I'll kind of get this back together, and I'm going to click it into place. So we've got these little tabs. Those are going to click into place like that. Now what we want to do is we want to trim this fuel line so that we have enough to where it's going to fit against the end of this barb, and it's going to put a little bit of pressure against this pump, because we want it to, the pump to be pushed down to here and have a little bit of pressure on it so it creates a good seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and eyeball it the best I can, and I think what I'll do is I'll take it apart and I'll see what the length is so that you can just measure that length, cut it to that length, and you should be good. So I have the hose trimmed to where it should be, and the total length here is about 6 inches. So if you make this piece of hose 6 inches long, that should be the perfect amount to make sure that the pump is nice and tight to the bottom of this canister here. It's going to be pretty tight getting it on the bulkhead, but I'd rather have it just a little bit too long than too short, because we want that pump to be nice and tight to the bottom of this canister here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that piece of hose pushed onto this bulkhead. I'm going to get a hose clamp on here, and then this other piece here, this can be for my return. I have everything all assembled here. So I've got the return line that's just going to dump back into the tank. Now the wiring for the pump, I have that coming through here. I have the wires kind of coming through in between this archway here. So what I'll do is I'll take my rubber grommet that was on there from factory, I'll put it between the two wires and then pop that down into place. Next, for our fuel sender here, I've got this guy. Now this little piece goes onto the canister first, so this is going to slide up. Now you can see through here there's a little open space. That is where your wiring is going to go through. So you're going to take your two wires and you're just going to kind of shove them up through there. And then to actually install the sender, it's pretty easy. It literally just kind of pushes on in this hole here. You've got the two little guides, and that is going to just go up like this, and then it clips into place. Kind of make sure your wiring isn't in the way, like that, and then goes up like that. Easy peasy. and that is your sender installed, and then your actual float is going to get installed like this. It goes into this hole, and then it clips on. Because I'm going to be tossing and turning this thing around, I'm not going to install this yet because I don't want to break it or bend it. So wiring just goes up like that. Just make sure it's kind of tucked up and out of the way. You can kind of route it like this so that it goes up and then through. And then what I'll do up here is I'll just run the wiring through the same way as my fuel lines are. So next up is our wiring. So for our wiring, we've got our connector, we've got this green piece here. This is going to kind of go on the top once we get everything together. And then the most important thing is when you're taking it apart, you want to take a picture of where your wires go. Now, the two wires from your fuel sender, these two, are, the polarity doesn't matter, so they just go in the center too. Now, your red and black, the position of those does matter. So if we look, it's really faded, but the red wire goes on the far left if I hold the connector like this, and then the black goes on the far right. So what we'll do is we'll grab our connectors here, and you can kind of see how part of the connector, see if I can get a close up of this, but this connector has an angle to it. You can see on the connector which side is higher, so this side is higher. So I'm going to put the connector in like that, just like that. Then we're going to do the same for our red wire here, and this is going to go on the far left, just like that. And then we're going to do our fuel sender wires, put those in. And you want to hear a nice click. And then same thing with this guy, just like that. I'm going to take a look and just make sure that all of my connections here look good. They're all fully inserted. Give all of them a little bit of a tug here. And then we're just going to take our little green piece, and this is going to slide in just like that. And it should click into place just like that. And then all we have to do here is plug it in. Make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure it's not coming out. Make sure our wires are kind of up and out of the way of everything. And that is it. We are ready to put this back into the tank. Now the last thing we have to do is get the pump assembly installed. So I'll kind of put that out of the way here. I'm going to take some WD-40. Our tank seal just slides into place like this. Super simple there. Nice and easy. And then we're going to take our fuel pump assembly here. Now this does go in a certain way. You can see this little tab. That's going to line up with the tab on the top. You should be able to see it. So put this in. Make sure we get this inserted into the seal. There we go. And then we'll get this kind of lined up. Turn that a little bit. Push that in. Push this side in. Now, this is the part that everyone struggles with. Let's see how it goes for me. Well, I don't know. That was pretty easy. Everyone I watched, they were having issues getting this ring on, but it went on pretty dang good for me. So what you want to do is you want to get this nice and tight. And once you get it to the point where you can't turn it anymore, I'm going to grab gloves so it's easier. Just give it a quick tap with a flat screwdriver and a hammer. I've got it as tight as I can with just my hands, so now I'm going to take hammer, flat-headed screwdriver, and I'm just going to give it a couple good taps there just to make sure it's nice and tight. And that is our pump installed, ready to go. We've got our feed here, our return here. We'll have to run new lines to the rail, but that's it. That is the bottleneck all fixed.